Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into a potential data exposure issue within Oracle NetSuite's SuiteCommerce platform.
Oh, wow.
Buckle up.
Okay.
Because this isn't just another tech glitch. It's a story with allegations of corporate stonewalling, whistleblower retaliation, and potential violations reaching HIPAA, GDPR, and beyond.
Sounds juicy.
Yeah, we've got court documents, investigative reports, and even some social media chatter to sort through.
So what makes this deep dive particularly fascinating is that it's coming from, a former insider.
Right.
Someone who was deeply involved with SuiteCommerce from its early days.
Right. An actual Oracle NetSuite insider turned whistleblower. They allege a pattern of concerning practices dating back to 2019, including breaches of partnership agreements and violations of standard procedures. They claim these concerns were raised repeatedly with senior management, but nothing was done.
And this isn't just some internal squabble.
Right.
In late 2024, the whistleblower's company claims to have uncovered a misconfiguration in SuiteCommerce that could have allowed attackers to access sensitive customer data. We're talking personally identifiable information, PII, and even protected health information, PHI.
Oh.
Potentially thousands of live SuiteCommerce websites were at risk.
Okay, so we've got potential data exposure on a massive scale, but it gets even more complicated.
Oh, no.
The whistleblower's company says they tried to alert Oracle through the proper channels, but were met with denial and dismissal. And then things took an even darker turn with allegations of retaliation.
Retaliation? So like what?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yes, the whistleblower alleges Oracle took steps to damage their company's reputation, excluded them from partnership programs, and even engaged in what they describe as racist attacks against their staff.
Whoa. That's a serious accusation. So in February of 2025, the whistleblower went public, filing complaints with a laundry list of regulatory agencies. We're talking the HHS Office for Civil Rights, for HIPAA violations, the FTC, the SEC, EU GDPR regulators. They didn't mess around.
No, they didn't. It's like they threw the entire alphabet soup of regulatory bodies at Oracle. They also launched a public awareness campaign on the investor platform StockTweets, bringing these issues to the attention of anyone who would listen.
So where do we even begin to unpack all of this? We've got a potential data exposure issue, allegations of a corporate cover-up, and multiple regulatory investigations. This could have huge ramifications, but before we dive into the potential fallout, I think we need to go back to the beginning.
Agreed. Let's start by exploring the early warning signs the whistleblower claims to have observed. Those alleged partnership breaches and procedural violations that were supposedly ignored, this is where the story really starts to take shape.
It sounds like something out of a corporate thriller. Let's dig in.
The whistleblower alleges that early warning signs emerged. Between 2019 and 2023, these weren't just minor slip-ups. We're talking about potential breaches of partnership agreements and procedural violations, things that should have raised red flags within Oracle.
Can you give us some specific examples of what the whistleblower is alleging? What kind of violations are we talking about here?
One example cited is Oracle's alleged failure to uphold the terms of their Bronto partnership agreement with the whistleblower's company. This partnership, which involved email marketing services, was apparently crucial to their business. The whistleblower claims they were excluded from key resources and essentially shut out of the partnership despite having a signed agreement in place.
That's a pretty serious accusation. And what about these procedural violations?
The whistleblower alleges that Oracle personnel improperly accessed their company's proprietary sales leads within the NetSuite system. This was allegedly done without authorization and violated several internal procedures, essentially using their partners' data for their own gain.
If true, that's a significant breach of trust, especially within a partner ecosystem. It makes you wonder what else might have been going on behind the scenes.
Exactly. And the whistleblower claims these concerns were repeatedly raised with senior management, including someone named Craig West, but they were completely ignored.
So they tried to go through the proper channels but hit a brick wall. It sounds like this alleged lack of accountability played a major role in the whistleblower's decision to eventually go public.
It certainly seems that way. Now let's fast forward to late 2024 when the whistleblower's company claimed that they uncovered this misconfiguration in the SuiteCommerce platform. What exactly did they find?
From what I understand, it all centers around these things called custom record types or CRTs. What are they and how do they relate to this potential data exposure?
CRTs are essentially custom database tables that NetSuite customers can create to store specific types of data for their business needs. For example, a company might create a CRT to track customer loyalty program data or manage product warranties.
So what's the issue with CRTs? Where's the security loophole?
The vulnerability arises when these CRTs are not properly configured with access controls. By default, NetSuite allows public access to CRTs. So unless a user explicitly sets restrictions, anyone could potentially view and even modify the data stored within them.
It's almost like leaving a filing cabinet full of sensitive documents unlocked at a public park. Anyone could just walk up and access that information.
That's a pretty apt analogy. In this case, it's digital data that could be exposed, and the public park is the internet, with misconfigured CRTs potentially accessible to anyone who knows where to look.
That's a frightening thought, especially when you consider the types of data that could be at risk. What exactly was potentially exposed in that case?
Based on the reports and the whistleblower's account, it seems personally identifiable information, PHI, such as full names, addresses, and even mobile phone numbers, was potentially accessible. Even more concerning is the potential exposure of protected health information, PHI, which falls under the strict regulations of HIPAA.
That's a huge red flag. We're talking about extremely sensitive data that could be used for identity theft, fraud, or even blackmail. Did the whistleblower's company try to alert Oracle about this vulnerability directly?
They absolutely did. They claim to have reached out to Oracle through their official Executive Resolution Center, or ERC. This is the channel specifically designed for handling sensitive issues like potential security vulnerabilities.
So what happened? Did Oracle acknowledge the issue and take steps to fix it?
Unfortunately, that's where the alleged corporate stonewalling comes in. The whistleblower claims that Oracle dismissed their concerns and denied any breach existed.
And this is where the situation escalates with those claims of retaliation?
Exactly. The whistleblower alleges that once they started raising concerns about the potential data exposure, Oracle took retaliatory actions against their company. They claim to have been excluded from partnership programs, faced defamatory comment from Oracle personnel on social media, and even experienced racist attacks directed at their Kenyan staff.
That's deeply concerning. It sounds like the whistleblower was caught in a catch-22, trying to do the right thing by reporting a security vulnerability but then facing severe consequences for speaking up.
That's the crux of the whistleblower's claims. It's a classic David versus Goliath situation, with a smaller company going up against a tech giant like Oracle.
It takes a lot of courage to stand up to a powerful corporation like that, especially when facing potential retaliation. So facing this apparent stonewalling and these alleged attacks, the whistleblower decided to go public in February 2025. Can you walk us through what they did and what agencies they contacted?
The whistleblower filed formal complaints with a whole slew of regulatory agencies, including the HHS Office for Civil Rights for HIPAA violations, the FTC for deceptive trade practices, the SDC for potential shareholder fraud, and even EU GDPR regulators for data protection breaches. They also filed complaints with multiple U.S. state attorneys general.
Wow, they really covered all their bases. What were the specific allegations in these complaints?
The complaints detailed the alleged failure of Oracle to adequately secure and protect PII and PHI on its SuiteCommerce platform. They argued that Oracle had a responsibility to implement stronger security measures, especially considering the sensitive nature of the data being handled.
And they also highlighted Oracle's failure to notify affected customers about the alleged breach, which is a key requirement under various data protection laws, including GDPR.
Exactly. They also accused Oracle of deceptive trade practices, citing Oracle's marketing of SuiteCommerce as a secure platform, despite these alleged vulnerabilities.
And of course, they didn't shy away from detailing those alleged retaliation attempts by Oracle. This public campaign seems to have added significant fuel to the fire, putting Oracle in a difficult position.
Absolutely. Now, let's delve into the technical aspects of the alleged SuiteCommerce vulnerabilities. Understanding the specifics of the misconfiguration will help us grasp the potential scope and impact of this issue.
Let's get into the nitty-gritty of cybersecurity. What exactly could an attacker have done with this vulnerability, and how could Oracle have prevented it? All right, so let's break down the technical side of this alleged NetSuite misconfiguration.
Okay.
As we discussed, it all comes down to these custom record types, or CRTs. Remind us again, what are they?
Yeah.
And how could they have potentially exposed sensitive information?
So think of CRTs as customizable database tables within NetSuite. Businesses can tailor them to store very specific types of data, anything from customer loyalty program details to product warranty information. It's a flexible way to manage information.
So the flexibility is great for businesses, but where does the security risk come in?
The vulnerability lies in how NetSuite handles access controls for these CRTs. By default, they're set to public access. So unless a user manually configures restrictions, anyone with the know-how could potentially view and even modify the data within them.
So it's not that CRTs are inherently insecure, it's that the default settings leave them wide open unless someone takes specific steps to lock them down.
Yeah, that's the crux of the issue. The Whistleblowers company argues that Oracle should have prioritized security by default, requiring users to opt in to public access rather than having it be the automatic setting.
That makes sense. It's kind of like leaving your front door unlocked unless you specifically remember to lock it each time you leave. A more secure approach would be to have the door lock automatically, and then you choose when to unlock it.
Exactly. Now, add to that the fact that NetSuite offers APIs, which act as digital doorways for applications to communicate and exchange data. If those CRTs are left publicly accessible, those APIs could be exploited to access that sensitive information.
Wait, so we're not just talking about someone stumbling upon this data accidentally. We're talking about malicious actors potentially using these APIs to intentionally target and extract this information.
That's the concern. The Whistleblowers company alleges that attackers could have used NetSuite's record and search APIs to systematically access and extract data from these misconfigured CRTs.
So what could Oracle have done differently? What kind of safeguards should they have implemented to prevent this?
Well, there are several measures they could have taken. Firstly, as we discussed, setting restricted access as the default for CRTs would significantly reduce the risk. Users would then have to consciously choose to make certain data public rather than it being open by default.
That seems like a pretty basic security best practice. What else?
Sensitive fields within CRTs should be masked or encrypted by default. Even if someone gained unauthorized access, the data itself would be protected. Think of it like a lockbox within a safe.
Double the protection makes sense.
Yeah. And in extreme cases where highly sensitive data is involved, Oracle could have implemented systems to temporarily take affected websites offline until proper security configurations are in place. It's a drastic step, but sometimes necessary to prevent a major breach.
It sounds like a lot of this comes down to basic security hygiene, really thinking about data protection from the ground up. And in a world where we're entrusting so much of our personal information to SaaS platforms, these kinds of safeguards are critical.
This case highlights a crucial point. SaaS security isn't just a technical issue, it's a matter of corporate responsibility. Vendors need to prioritize data protection and implement safeguards that go beyond the bare minimum.
Right. It's not enough to just offer a service. You have to ensure that service is secure and protects user data. And the fact that this potential vulnerability was brought to light by a whistleblower, someone who potentially risked their career to expose these issues, speaks volumes.
Yeah, the role of whistleblowers in holding powerful corporations accountable is more crucial than ever. Their actions often come at a personal cost, yet they can have a huge impact on protecting the public and forcing companies to take responsibility for their actions.
This whole situation is a stark reminder that we can't blindly trust companies to protect our data. We need to demand transparency, ask tough questions about security practices, and support those who dare to speak truth to power.
Absolutely. This case is still unfolding, and it will be interesting to see how the various regulatory investigations play out and what consequences, if any, Oracle will face. But regardless of the outcome, this is a wake-up call for the entire SaaS industry.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
Don't be complacent about your data security, even if you're using a well-known SaaS platform. Take the time to understand the platform's security settings. Ask your vendor about their data protection practices, and be wary of default settings that prioritize convenience over security. You know your data is valuable, so treat it that way.
Wise words to live by in our digital world. Well, thank you for guiding us through this complex and important topic. And to our listeners, stay informed, stay curious, and as always, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.